Harry's September return threatened after Charles demands Meghan stay out of palace. What if Harry's September return was never really about bringing the Sussexes home at all? And what if the palace's latest move was designed to make one thing brutally clear: Harry may be welcome inside, but Meghan is not? That is the explosive scenario now hanging over this entire royal comeback story. And if the reported palace conditions are even remotely accurate, then Harry isn't walking back through those doors as part of a united couple. He's walking through them alone, under terms that could expose the biggest divide between the Sussexes and the royal family yet.
Hey, yikes, total marriage meltdown, folks.
That tells me there's a problem in the marriage.
That if either of them is hesitant about accepting the king's invitation, it will get withdrawn the way it did last time.
There is a real dark side to Harry, isn't there?
Does that sound like a happy marriage to you?
So Harry has left. He's leaving California.
Prince Harry's royal return is real. It is scheduled, and it arrives with one condition. Nobody inside Buckingham Palace has said out loud. The condition is his wife. Here is exactly what you are getting in the next 25 minutes. The terms King Charles attached to the September invitation. Why Meghan Markle has spent weeks pushing back against it. The single line buried in a magazine exclusive that proves this invitation has already been withdrawn once before and can be withdrawn again. A named British musician who was handed a photograph inside Buckingham Palace and told never to show it to anyone, and the one man who can undo every part of this the day he takes the throne. Stay to the end because there is an empty seat in this story. By the close, you will know precisely who is supposed to be sitting in it. Start with the offer because the offer is real.
Now, this is an amazing exclusive from Closer Online, who are brilliant for royal scoops. And they quoted an insider as saying Prince Harry is working overtime to convince Meghan to come back to the United Kingdom. The quote says he's working overtime to change her mind about a royal return and a return to the UK. And it's becoming quite the saga, says this insider, as they continue to butt heads over differing priorities. Now, this demonstrates just how, in my opinion, selfish Meghan Markle is, because it's quite clear that Harry needs to have a relationship with his father. King Charles is battling cancer. Yes, he's responding well to treatment. And yes, he'll be on the throne, we're hoping, for many years to come. But he's an older man. He's still got that cancer. And Harry wants to be with his old man, as the king was quoted as saying just a few weeks ago, blood is blood.
Said that again slower. King Charles is battling cancer. Prince Harry wants his father. And a magazine insider says Harry is working overtime. Not on the palace, not on his brother, on Meghan. That is the shape of this entire story, and it never changes. Every door in it opens toward Britain. Every one of them is blocked from inside a house in California. Now, here is what the invitation actually costs. That phrase, working overtime, is where the gossip really begins. Because imagine Harry looking at the situation from his side. His father is still king. His relationship with William remains deeply complicated. His American life has not produced the permanent royal adjacent influence many once expected. His legal battles have generated enormous attention and expense. And suddenly Britain, the country he spent years distancing himself from, becomes strategically important again. But then comes Meghan. And this is where the palace scenario becomes explosive.
Of getting people's backs up if Meghan doesn't come. It's a huge honor for the king to be welcoming them to stay at the palace. It'll be seen as very bad form to reject that offer, and Harry is doing his best to impress that upon Meghan. One of the key things that's going to persuade his dad that they can be trusted again is to follow protocol and show proper respect to the institution and to him.
Read that twice. Follow protocol. Show proper respect to the institution. That is not a Christmas card. That is a set of terms. And the terms are being handed to a woman who spent 5 years telling the world that the institution broke her. So what does the Duchess of Sussex say to a free week at Buckingham Palace? She says it does not pay. That is the collision. Because Buckingham Palace is not a Hollywood hotel. You don't arrive, rewrite the rules, and decide which traditions apply to you. The entire point of a royal residence is protocol, hierarchy, and symbolism. Every doorway means something. Every appearance means something. Every photograph can become a headline. And if Meghan were suddenly standing beside Harry inside Buckingham Palace after years of public criticism of the institution, the optics would be enormous. The palace would have to manage the message. Harry would have to manage the message. Meghan would have to manage the message. And the British public would dissect every photograph. Sit with that for a second. The King of the United Kingdom opens his own house, and the answer that comes back is a cash flow objection. Not "we're grateful," not "we'll be there," a ledger. Now, whether every detail of that alleged dispute is accurate is another question, but the larger strategic problem is obvious. Harry and Meghan do not necessarily want the same thing from a British return. Harry can gain something by appearing. Meghan can potentially lose something. Harry's image can be rebuilt through repeated low-key appearances. A charity event here, a family occasion there, a short stay, a photograph, another appearance months later. Gradually, the public becomes accustomed to seeing him again. That is exactly why the idea of an incremental return has become so controversial. Not one giant announcement, not Harry is officially back, nothing that dramatic, just appearances, and then more appearances. And then suddenly everyone realizes the man who left is everywhere again. Harry understands why she wants to stay in the United States. She's got an endless pile of work, and of course, throwing in a trip to her in-laws overseas, even if it is to stay at Buckingham Palace, is one more thing on her plate. Harry knows, says the insider, that it's very draining. There are also so many rules, so many eyes judging her and judging her every move. It would say that Harry's relationship with his father is one issue. Harry's relationship with the monarchy is another. And Meghan's relationship with the institution is something entirely separate. That would create the most awkward royal photograph imaginable. Harry inside the palace while his wife remains thousands of miles away. And suddenly the empty chair from the opening isn't metaphorical anymore. And that is exactly why the next stage of this story becomes so dangerous for Harry. If the September visit goes ahead, the palace does not need to announce a comeback, and it certainly does not need to call it a return to royal duties. All it has to do is allow Harry to appear quietly and repeatedly until the public begins treating his presence as normal again. That is the strategy commentators have described, and it mirrors the broader pattern previously associated with Camilla, where familiarity was built gradually through appearances rather than one dramatic declaration. A birthday celebration became an engagement became another public appearance, and eventually the relationship itself became ordinary to millions of people who had once viewed it differently. The same logic could theoretically apply to Harry. Remembrance events, Commonwealth occasions, charity appearances, family gatherings, and carefully controlled palace visits could create a rhythm. Nothing would have to be announced as a restoration. Nothing would have to be called a rehabilitation. Harry would simply start appearing again. And if Meghan remained absent from those appearances, that absence would become part of the story whether either of them wanted it to or not. Every photograph would invite the same question, every empty space beside Harry would become another headline, and every future appearance would be compared with the last. But there is a wall that Harry cannot simply walk around, and that wall is Prince William. Charles may be able to offer an invitation today, but the long-term future of the monarchy belongs to the next generation. Any attempt to transform Harry's temporary appearances into something resembling a permanent working role would eventually have to survive the judgment of William. That is why the September visit matters less as a final destination and more as a test of what could possibly come next. Harry can show up, he can participate, he can be respectful, and he can demonstrate that he is willing to operate within the rules. What he cannot do is force the institution to restore a role that no longer exists. And this is where the Meghan question becomes impossible to ignore. If the couple genuinely have different priorities over Britain, the palace, public duties, and their future, September could expose that difference without anyone ever admitting it publicly. Meghan does not need to issue a statement. Harry does not need to criticize her. Charles does not need to announce a ban. Sometimes the evidence people notice most is simply who is present and who is missing. That is why the most explosive version of this story is not Harry walking away from Britain. It is Harry walking toward it while the person everyone expects beside him remains somewhere else. The September visit could therefore become a strange experiment. Can Harry rebuild a relationship with the institution without rebuilding the old life that existed before the Sussexes left? Can he become familiar to the British public again without officially becoming a working royal? And can he do it while his relationship with William remains unresolved? There is also the unresolved issue of the previous accommodation arrangement. Reporting has already established that a palace accommodation offer connected to an earlier visit was withdrawn after arrangements changed, which gives the dramatic "it can happen again" angle a genuine precedent, even though the precise private motivations remain unknown. That history matters because it means Harry cannot assume that every palace door remains open indefinitely. Invitations have practical conditions. Schedules change, decisions are finalized, and once the palace machinery moves, changing course can become impossible. So now the pressure surrounding September becomes much clearer. Harry has an opportunity, but it is not unlimited. Meghan has her own priorities, Charles has his own constraints. William represents the future, and the public is watching every move. The empty seat is therefore still sitting at the center of this story. Who fills it may tell us more than any official statement ever could. If Harry arrives alone, the image will speak for itself. If Meghan appears beside him, the entire theory changes. And if the palace suddenly changes the arrangement again, everyone will know that this was never simply a family visit. It was a test of how far the door could open.